Hello everyone, this is Steven from the Even Steven channel. Today we're going to talk about scopes, which I don't know a whole lot about, but I'm going to try. So I have my Ruger Mini-14, which I do enjoy the classic look of the Ruger Mini-14. And I noted in my initial couple of videos that the sights that come with the Ruger Mini-14, at least the ones that came with my gun, did not work very well at all and would loosen up with every shot. They were like set screws that you used to adjust the windage, and they would literally like shake loose after every shot. So that was not good. I ended up replacing this, the original sights, with what are called Tech sights, or Tech sights. The company's called Tech Sight. And it's a pretty decent set of rear sights, iron sights for the Ruger Mini-14. However, that aperture is quite small. I guess that means it's precise, but over time I just kind of wanted to replace it with something else. So what are our options for the Ruger Mini-14? Let's go back here a second. So if you look here, and this is not loaded. In fact, let's leave that locked open to see if it makes it a little easier to see what's going on. But if you look here and here, there are mounting points for stuff. You can either, and this comes in the box, you can use the aluminum Picatinny rail, which I think they should have just left straight. I think that's try to give clearance for the cartridges coming out. So you can mount a scope on Picatinny rail on here, which I feel like Ruger should just have standard from the factory. Like this should be milled into the receiver, honestly. That's what I think Ruger should do. You can put on the Picatinny rail, and they give you the screws for the Picatinny rail. So that's cool. It comes in the box. Again, I think this should be straight. Unless Ruger is just super worried that the cartridge is going to hit this spot right here. But I feel like you need the extra adjustment. This isn't particularly long rail, so I feel like you should have all that rail space. You can't really lock anything on this part. But it's something. And it comes with the screws. And it comes with the blue Loctite, which is, that's nice extra. But what we're going to use, or what I'm going to use, are the included scope rings. Now, Ruger just refers to these as scope rings. And there's a little bit of confusion on my part as to what kind of scope rings these are. These are obviously steel. This is aluminum. This is obviously steel. It's quite hefty. But never did Ruger ever tell me what size rings these are. I had to kind of assume these are 1-inch rings. And the way they attach is basically into this notch right here. Let's see if I could do it properly. I feel like it only goes on one side. But, wow. But you loosen this up, push that in, put it on, tighten it down. Yeah, I feel like it can only go on this way with the nut on the right, I guess left side. And this really isn't going to be super precise right now because it's just the idea of putting it on. And might as well do both for the sake of showing you what's going on. And your scope kind of goes on top of that. Looks a little high, but it seems like it'd be pretty solid. I think just in case, I'm going to take this rear sight off because I can. I'm going to take the rear sight off entirely and put the scope on. So what scope are we going to use? And this is really the focus of the video. This is the Leupold VX Freedom 1.5 to 4 by 20. I don't know what the 20 means. But it's 1.5 by 4 magnification. And this is Leupold's like budget option. Leupold is, of course, a very well-respected company. They make, you know, optics that cost $1,000, $2,000 each. But this is kind of their budget option. And this retails for about $300. In fact, I think Leupold has like the stipulation of mine in place that this optic can't be sold for less than $300. Like it's $299, and that's kind of their retail floor. That they don't want the retailers selling this optic for less than $300. You know, $299. They don't want it to be sold less than that, because that might undermine their other options, which are much, much more expensive. The reticle, this is called the MOA reticle, which I kind of liked. There's a couple different ones, and this one just seemed to be the one that I kind of liked the most. I got this off Amazon, and there really isn't a whole lot going on here. You open it up, there's a little bit of instructions, there's not much. And just the optic. This appears to be made out of aluminum, which I guess is good and keeps it light. What do we got going on here? USA designed, machined and assembled. Okay. Is Leupold saying this is a 100% American-made part? That's pretty cool. The Leupold logo, VX Freedom. I think I said FX VX Freedom. So I mean, they give all the information on here as to what it is, and it's just a very simple. Can we get a view of what this looks like? Let's see if I could get it on camera. It's very difficult to line all this up, but I think you get the idea. The adjustment is pretty stiff. Quality seems okay, just the coating on it isn't great. I tried the scope rings on here, and putting the scope rings on, you know, they're all tightened up now, but I tried the scope rings on the scope before, and it kind of scratched the scope up. So I think that might actually be more of a problem with the scope rings than the scope. And there is, I think this is like a focus adjustment, and let's see what we're doing. You can adjust the focus, and then you can tighten it down. So you loosen this screw up. You can kind of adjust I'm assuming this is like a focus knob. If I'm using the wrong terms, then I'm using the wrong terms. And this is your adjustment. ¼ MOA clicks, which is nice. I think that's all you need for a 4-power scope. And the same thing, this is adjusting up for elevations, adjusting left to right for windage. And they are pretty good click adjustability. That one, okay, that one didn't seem smooth there. So going back and forth, there's a little bit of play here. I feel like I'm moving back and forth in the same notch. And nice lightweight aluminum caps. So here's the thing. I know a little bit about rifles, and I know even less about scopes. So I am not going to be mounting the scope onto this rifle because I don't think I know enough to do it right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it to my local gun store. I'm going to have them do it because I want it done right. And honestly, sometimes you just got to pay someone else to do something for you. I don't have like a vise to put it in. I don't have like leveling tools. I just don't know enough about mounting scopes. So with the use of Movie Magic, I'm pretty much going to cut here, and then we're going to come back later to when the scope's on. So yeah, like I said, it's going to be a time jump. The scope's gonna be on. I'm gonna have shot the gun already with the scope on, and then I'm gonna give you like an after report. So that's what we're gonna do. I'll see you in a few. And we're back. We're back. Boy, are we ever back. Or are we not? We're not back. We're not back. Anyway, so in between turning the camera off, I went to my local gun store and I said, hey, look, I have this scope. I have these scope rings. Can you please put it together for me? Because I don't know enough about rifles to do it myself. Sometimes you got to admit that. And they put the scope on the scope mount. And they put the scope in the scope rings. And they mounted it to the receiver. And the gunsmith there said he used blue Loctite in all the screws. So the screws here, 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 and here. All got a little bit of blue Loctite. Now the scope looks like it's sitting a little high. It kind of is. However, when I shouldered it, it seemed pretty good. It didn't bother me too much. I actually didn't mind it. I think the scope looks attractive on the gun. I think it looks good. Yeah, I like it. Now what I did is I took the rear sight off, the tech sight off, because I was worried that it would interfere with the scope, and it looks like it probably would have. So I just put the screw back in there. I can take it out if I want, but so scope is on the rifle. So I proceeded to take it to my local range, and I was shooting, 55 grain, 5.56 NATO. I was at 5.56 NATO, but yeah, M193 NATO spec 5.56 ammo, 55 grain. But 20 rounds of this goes into this magazine. So every magazine is like $10 a box. Every magazine is $10. And as I was shooting it, I was enjoying myself. I was using the 10-round magazines because, the 20 rounds, 30-round magazines are a little long, and it's good to have the 10-round magazines do some zeroing and shooting at the bench. And I was adjusting the scope, and this is like 1/4 MOA adjustment. My magazine just fell. This is 1/4 MOA adjustment. So, even like 10 clicks only moves the reticle so far at 25 and 50 yards. And I was going for a 50 yard zero. I was starting at 25 and then trying to go to 50 yard zero. And then all of a sudden, I was shooting super far right out of nowhere. And I was like, that's weird. That didn't seem right. It seemed like I was dialing it in quite slowly, but it was getting there. And I'm not the best rifle shooter, but all of a sudden it was just shooting so far to the right, like 6 inches to the right. I was like, that's odd. And this screw had shaken loose. It was loose. You could physically just move around with your hand. And I was like, oh my God, what is this, Ruger? What is this? I'll just show it's clear. You can see right through it. It's clear. And that was so disappointing. So disappointing. So I took it back to my local gun store and their gunsmith and told him what happened. And it was like, I Loctited it down. He said I put blue Loctite on all the screws. And I go, could you please just use red Loctite on these screws so they don't come loose? I need to stay on this. I need the scope to stay in place. He goes, okay, yeah, sure. And he didn't charge me extra. I paid to have the scope put on, mounted, bore sighted, all that stuff. They were very, very reasonable priced service for that. And when I brought it back the second time, told them what happened, they didn't charge me any extra. They said, yeah, we'll fix it. Don't worry about it. And they put red Loctite on the screws. he said this was hand loose. Like he said this one also was coming loose, but it wasn't as bad. He torqued it down as much as he could when he put them on in the first place. And he said this one was also starting to come loose, although it was not as obvious. Like just touching it, it was not loose. So he put red Loctite on, and I haven't shot the gun since because that was today. And honestly, I don't know the next time I'm going to get a chance to go shooting. Ruger is kind of wasting my time. Ruger's wasting my time. I feel like these scopes, this implementation of this mounting system here, they have these shallow claws wrapping onto the receiver, is not a good mounting solution. It's just not great. Now you can put a Picatinny rail on there, but the Picatinny rail is held in place by 3 different screws. Now we got more screws. Ruger really should mill in, or I guess cast, because this is a cast receiver if I remember correctly. They should cast a Picatinny rail into the receiver. If they got to make it a little bit taller, because it's got to clear the cartridges coming out, make it a little taller, but put it on there. Like these mounting solutions Ruger gives, they're just bad. I mean, the rear sight from the factory was loose. Not so much the actual sight itself, but the screw adjustment on the sight was loose. This scope shook itself loose under recoil, which I don't think was all that severe. It's pretty mild recoil from this gun. But just like this idea, this mounting system, I just don't think is very good. You have these 2 shallow claws, and they kind of just like wrap around either side of this receiver block. And it's just not that good. It's not that good. So it's red Loctited down. Shouldn't move. Oh God, it shouldn't move. But hopefully next time I go out shooting, I'll be able to get a good 0. Now, it's hard for me to talk about the scope. The video really should be about the scope, the Leupold VX Freedom 1 to 5 to 4, but it has to go on the rifle. So now the video has become about the rifle, when it should be about the scope. The scope seems fine. It seems to do what it's supposed to do. It has a nice big field of view. At 1.5 magnification, it's nice and big, and you can see everything. The only thing I'll say about the scope is that when you dial in the magnification, when you go from that 1.5 to that 4, the eye box becomes less forgiving. You have to have your eye at just the kind of the perfect place to see it properly, or else you kind of lose it. And I think that's fair. I'm gonna say, like, you know, it's not the most expensive scope. It's not like it's bad. It's just that you have to be more aware of where your eye is and where your face is relative to the scope when you have the higher magnification. And when you're using the higher magnification, you're probably going to have the gun rested somehow. So I think it still works. I think the scope is good. I just think the scope rings are not great either, because the scope rings, this portion right here, was extremely tight to the scope body. Like I was playing around with before I took it to my gun store, but when you put this top of the scope rings onto the scope, it like scratches the paint on the scope. It's so tight, and even the Gunsmith noted that too. Like you're basically, when you put this steel scope ring on this aluminum scope, you scratch the paint. So I think it's not really showing, but you can kind of see what I'm talking about right there. That's just me fooling around trying it out, and that's where the scratch was when I did it. So that is disappointing. It's kind of disappointing on Ruger's part, really. I lost, where did my cap go? Oh, no, I was looking for the, I forgot that I put one of the scope caps on there. Yeah, the scope itself doesn't come with any like eye coverings. It doesn't come with that. You can probably buy something, but it doesn't come with that. And like I said, I'm a little disappointed that the video became about the gun than the scope, because it's supposed to be about the scope, but it has to go onto the gun and it has to work. And I feel like Ruger is making this difficult and an inferior design. This is an inferior mounting system that I think Ruger should, you know, update. And I kind of talked about it a little bit in other videos where I feel like other companies need to be making Ruger Mini-14s. Because what I really would like, honestly, I think the perfect update for the Ruger Mini-14 would be to mill or cast a Picatinny receiver into the receiver, Picatinny rail into the receiver, and then like get like M-lock here, M-lock there, and M-lock there. That just makes it such a more modern, accessorizable, is that a word? More easy to accessorize, more easy to, a more modular gun. This is wood, so if that had to be a plastic stock to make it work, I don't care. If the plastic is lighter, if the plastic can have M-lock on it, so be it, but I'm just dealing with Ruger Mini-14 quirkiness, and it's getting annoying. However, the scope seems fine. So, like I said, the video should be about the scope, but it's not. And now I'm venting a little bit because, you know, I kind of wasted time. I had to drive to the range. I had to pay $40 for my fee and for the targets. And, you know, like I said, I'm paying $10 a box. And, you know, every time I pull the trigger, it's 50 cents. However, assuming that the scope stays in place, it seems quite fun. I was shooting a little bit at 15 yards, and 15 yards with the scope dialed all the way down to 1.5. It's fun. You can still shoot the gun with a certain amount of cadence with the scope. It's fun. So I just needed to not move. Just don't move. Anyway, yeah, I don't want to make it too negative, but this is Steven from the Even Steven channel. Assuming that the scope stays in place, and the rifle does what it's supposed to do, and the scope does it was supposed to do, and the scope rings do what they're supposed to do, then this does seem like a good setup. But if you put something onto your gun, maybe have that really secured with red Loctite everywhere, because this thing just wants to shake loose. The Ruger Mini-14 just wants to shake everything loose for some reason. Like I said, this is Steven from the Even Steven channel. Please don't like, share, and subscribe. If you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comment section, and I will see you next time. Thank you, and goodbye.